Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of OTH Sports View. I'm Times Herald sports writer JP Butler, and today we're going to bring you another high school basketball edition of the show. We thought with the St. Bonaventure men's basketball team off this week and not playing again until Sunday, and with the women's team pretty much doing nothing but continuing to win and also playing again on Sunday, and with our high school teams, 2 weeks left in the regular season, jockeying for sectional playoff positioning right now, potentially, going for a league title, that it would be a good time to get into our high school basketball stuff. I'm joined by my handsome colleagues, Shawn Campbell and Sam Wilson, and we will get right into it. Shawn, we'll start with you. I know you've seen a lot of both the Olean boys and girls basketball teams. Two teams that are generally pretty good every year, and this year maybe even more so. Just kind of really an unprecedented start for these teams. The boys team undefeated right now at 14-0. Their last undefeated regular season came 10 years ago in 2005-06. The Olean High girls also undefeated at 14-0. Off to their best start since 2003-2004. We know with the Olean boys, a lot of talent there, a lot of guys who can score, and I think just really good defensively, getting up in you and causing steals, which I think sort of allows their whole thing to go. What have you seen from the boys and the girls team that has just allowed them to continue the kind of seasons that they're having right now?
As you said, just a great start for the boys record-wise. And it was kind of interesting. A coach that I talked to after one of the games that they recently had kind of summed it up pretty well with the boys, that they have a lot of different weapons on the court and a lot of guys who can hurt you, so you can't really slough off, is the way he put it, on one guy. You got to be ready to defend everybody, which nobody's really been able to do that yet.
Right.
I think they've had 5 different guys lead the team in scoring on different nights, so I mean there's a lot of different guys who can carry a scoring load.
Right.
And as you said, I think their offense is averaging around 70 points per game. Defense has been great with tough man-to-man, right around 43, 45 points a game, so pretty solid on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And as for the girls, they've been doing excellent as well. Something that really stands out to me is, I mean, they're 14-0, but they've actually trailed at halftime in 5 games, and they've won every single one of them, which, I mean, is really pretty impressive to do. To be able to battle back.
Sure, and I think that's something that can probably suit them well, going forward in the postseason, having actually gone through it a little bit. Where, as the boys, I think right now just kind of continue to cruise.
Yeah, I mean the boys had one kind of nail-biting game against Fredonia. They get them again Friday, February 5th. It's a 5-point game the first time. Could kind of be a difficult test going out to Fredonia.
Right.
Big crowd late in the season with probably the league title on the line.
They'll be up for it, I would imagine.
So that's a big one.
Right. And another team, really our most local teams are doing very well this year. The teams that are right in our backyard, the Archbishop Walsh boys team being the other. This is a team we know, led by Campbell, who's having a tremendous year, and really kind of their version of their big three with Christian Shirakis and Adam Moore as well. They, to me, have really seemed to hold their own in what is a pretty good league. Even the other night against Canisius, they end up losing that game. It gets away from them in the end. But it seemed like they were right there for a while with a team of Canisius's caliber, and I know they've won a lot of these other games. That's pretty impressive to me that they were able to hang with that team as long as they did.
Yeah, they've had good showings against really quality teams. Canisius, Park School. Canisius the other night, they were tied after the first quarter, and I think down by 6 or 7 at halftime, but as you said, it got away from them a little bit. But I mean, there's really been nothing to complain about for them going against some of those top tier teams. Last week they had a big win against St. Mary's of Lancaster that pushed them up to number 2 in the Western New York small school poll behind Olean. And I mean, they're really in a good position to win the regular season title of the Class B part of the Monsignor Martin Association, get that number 1 seed for the playoffs. Sure. And who knows if they can win postseason title, they'd be going to states.
Right, and this is a team that has shown that it can really play with pretty much anything, which I think is a testament to the guys they do have and the job that Amy Moore has done over there right now. I want to switch gears a little bit to some other teams in Cattaraugus County. Sam, I think you told me before the show that you've seen all three of these teams in action, if I'm not mistaken, but in the East, we talked the last time about the good start that Salamanca had gotten off to.
Right.
I think they've kind of struggled a little bit of late, and now you have actually two other Big 30 teams, Allegheny Limestone, who I feel like has been a little bit hit and miss at times this year, above them.
That's fair.
And also even Portville now a game above. And Portville, we talked, here's a team that's certainly been snake bitten a little bit. 4, I think we counted overtime losses this year, 2 other close losses. So this is a team, I think they're maybe 6 and 8 now or something like that. That probably could be 8 and 6 or even better. But all three of those teams, what have you seen? What do you think could come out of that league kind of over the last 2 weeks?
That league has been remarkable to start with. Gowanda's out front so far. They have a 3-1 start, and which is one of their best starts in years. But I think Salamanca, you started with them. They had a nice non-league start to the season, built up some wins, but when they got to this league stretch, they lost their first 3. And I saw them Friday against Portville, and it looked like it might be headed that way again, 4 in a row, which would be pretty disappointing, almost disastrous for what their expectations were. But that was a game that they needed, and they came back with it and forced it to overtime, which, as you said, that's the 4th overtime loss for Portville this year, which is kind of remarkable. Portville's had just a ton of close games. The only overtime game they won actually went to 4 overtimes with Randolph, which is
just quite the season that Bill Torrey and company have had over there this year.
Yeah, definitely. And they lost in overtime first round of the IBO. It's just I guess you got to point to a little bit of bad luck there with that, but really every game it seems like in that league has been single digits or maybe 13 points, but really no more than that. It's a really competitive league. So, Gowanda has the nice start, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Randolph climb up there with them, or Silver Creek, or Allegheny Limestone, Portville. Salamanca, it'll be tough with those 3 losses, but they have a big test coming up Friday against Silver Creek in a rematch of. They lost to Silver Creek up there. And that actually came down to it was a 3-point game with a minute to go, and they lost by maybe 5. So it's a really competitive league, and every team already has a loss, and it'll be interesting to see if there will be some. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there'll be some separation over the last couple of weeks.
Right. And we mentioned Portville again. They have a crack at that number 1 team right now, Gowanda, tonight at home. That was a game that it wasn't. Pretty, I think, the first time around, but I think we suspected it could be a much different game this time. Portville it's not like they're playing poorly, it's just they are coming out on some tough losing ends here.
They actually have 5 straight home games to end the regular season,
really?
So maybe they'll get kind of roll here.
That's something that could maybe give them a push going towards the end. Switching gears again, I'm looking at our small school boys rankings. Certainly Olean, the likes of Olean, Coudersport was still undefeated, Walsh and Wellsville up top in the large school. In the small school, I had an opportunity to do a game the other night, Genesee Valley against Bolivar Richburg, and there were some interesting storylines there because it was for first place in the Allegheny County Division I League. It was a chance for Genesee Valley to kind of avenge its only loss of the season, which was to Bolivar Richburg earlier in the year. And then, of course, one of 4 Big 30 area players this week going over 1,000 points, Carter Schneider for Genesee Valley, does that. I was impressed with Schneider and with Genesee Valley as a team. They played great defense and they got the ball to Schneider early and often, and they were really able to kind of take care of Bolivar Richburg to really take command in that league. Genesee Valley and Cuba Rushford are both 6-1, but Genesee Valley owns the tiebreak over Cuba Rushford right now, so they are sitting pretty in the Allegheny County League and in Class D for Section 5.
Mm-hmm.
The number 2 team in our small school rankings, Franklinville. And now we're going back to another CCA division, the East 2 division. Here we have Franklinville and Ellicottville tied atop that league right now. Sam, I know you did the head-to-head game between them.
Yes.
Last week. They're both 4-1 right now. Both of those teams look to sort of be in control in that league.
Right, and that was a fascinating game. It had a lot of runs back and forth, and it was a nice contrast of styles where you have Franklinville, which is a nice pace team. They shoot a lot of threes. Their coach Jeff Haskell told me they want to have 5 3-point shooters on the court at all the times. And he said they always have 5 takers. They don't always have 5 makers, which was one of my favorite quotes this year. But they're led by Sam Erickson as a sophomore. They have a couple seniors in their starting lineup, Dawson Bilecki, Will Bays. And they're a really interesting team. They're 12-2. They've won a lot of close games. They've been able to close out a lot of games. Ellicottville, just a little above 500. They're 8-7, but they've had a nice league, nice start to their league, and that game was it really came down to it. It was a 7-point final, but it was down to 1 possession in that last minute there. So that'll be really interesting to see when they have a rematch. It'll be the last game of the year for Ellicottville. At least that's how it's scheduled. It'll be the last league game, and that could very well decide it.
Now and that's interesting to me because Franklinville has really been pretty good all year long.
Right.
I did a game of theirs in the IBO, so I saw firsthand what they're kind of capable of. Ellicottville is a team that actually has struggled a little bit at times this year, but obviously they just showed the other night that they can hang with a team like Franklinville. What do we think, Shawn, it is about Ellicottville, Dave McCann's group over there that just kind of has allowed them to, despite maybe some of the losses here along the way, to still be able to compete in a league like that?
It seems like they're a pretty young team from what I gather, with the best player being a sophomore, Elliot Bowen, this big man. It seems like, to me, just looking at the results, I haven't seen them play yet, but it seems like they've gotten better during the course of the year. Maybe that result against Franklinville shows that. I think they played Portville pretty early and lost, and they beat them in the rematch, so that's one way to gauge that. But it seems like they're coming along, and I mean, it was a great game in Franklinville the other night. You're really giving them a run.
They're a team, I think, that has sort of been getting better as they've gone along. Their results, maybe against even some of the teams they've played, have been better as they've gone.
Yeah, like Shawn said, Bowen, who's a very impressive big man, great size, great touch inside. He had 31 against Franklinville. He's just a sophomore. Their point guard, Austin Griddles, is a sophomore who's also a very talented kid. He can shoot it. So I think, Franklinville certainly has some young kids in big spots too, but maybe it just took a little while for them to find their footing this season. But they were certainly impressive in that game. I saw.
And 2 teams that we think could probably do some damage in the sectional playoffs going forward, and 2 teams on the girls' side that we want to wrap up with here that could also certainly do the same. 2 of our best girls' teams, I think, in the area after Olean. They played each other the other night, which to me, I was really intrigued to see the outcome of that game. Was because they're not going to play each other in league play, and they maybe don't have as many common teams to go on and see. So you wanted to see them head to head, you know what I mean? And that was Allegheny Limestone, Franklinville, and in the end, it just seemed to me that Franklinville, with the 2 Haskell girls, Allie and Danny, were just a little too much for Allegheny Limestone, which we know is led by Allie Fornes.
It seems like just maybe collectively, Franklinville's guards maybe a little bit stronger. It seems like that could be a difference, but just overall, 2 teams that are probably sectional title favorites, both in the top 4 in Western New York among small schools. So I mean, a great non-league game for both teams to play.
Right. I think certainly a test, something that will help both of them, almost like a playoff game right now at this point in the year. Especially
when you see Allegheny Limestone in their league, they really haven't had a test yet from any of those teams. I remember last year they had some battles with Randolph and Salamanca. Randolph's not in that league anymore. They've moved over to East 2. Salamanca is certainly down this year. They lost some really strong talent from last year, and they've had a coaching change. So there really hasn't been a great test for Allegheny in that league. So that was, I'm sure they were, they're not happy to lose, but I'm sure they were glad to see such a strong opponent in Franklinville.
And something they're going to see moving forward.
Right.
We mentioned earlier in the show, we'll close with this, that 4 area kids actually eclipsed the 1,000 point mark this week. 2 in the same game that we were just, or Franklinville played again last night, and 2 from that game. When Allie Haskell, who had a shot at it against Allegheny Limestone, did do it yesterday against Randolph.
Just a sophomore.
Which is crazy that that was going for another 2 years after this.
2000.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And her sister might get there too, you would have to think.
Well, they're together. And Peyton Tourette on Randolph's side, they both did it in the same game. The game I did the other night, Carter Schneider for Genesee Valley, who's a great player for them. And also that night was down in Pennsylvania, Port Allegheny's Jordan Seafelt. So we certainly want to acknowledge those 4. There have already been a few others this year who have done it. There may be a few more by the end of the season who join them. But that is our latest high school basketball edition of OTH Sports View, and we appreciate you watching.